Baklava is a pain in the ass. Hey friends, my name is George Gianaris. I'm a chef of 36 years, and if you're here, it's because you like to eat healthy, save money, and cook like a pro. So where does baklava fall into that spectrum of eating healthy? It really doesn't. It's a splurge, it's a treat, but baklava is very expensive. And if you're gonna be making it yourself, at least you get to choose the quality ingredients you wish to put into it. Pre-manufactured, pre-purchased baklava, they cut a lot of corners, and you're not gonna get a quality baklava. And they may substitute sugar for corn syrup. They may not put as many nuts as is required in a traditional baklava recipe, and they could replace that with like breadcrumbs. It's been done. So today I'm going to show you how I make baklava and have been making baklava at my restaurant for nearly 45 years. Baklava can be found in so many different cultures and so many different styles. They make it with almonds, they make it with walnuts, they make it with pistachios. My baklava is a little bit untraditional in the sense that I make mine with walnuts and almonds. You can choose whatever nuts that you like. You find more like in the Lebanese, Middle Eastern style of baklava, they use pistachios. You don't really find that too much in the Greek culture. But whatever you do, based on your budget, try to choose as many organic ingredients as you possibly can. To make baklava, you're gonna need sugar, butter, lemon, walnuts, almonds, cloves, cinnamon sticks, ground cinnamon, water, and last but not least, filo. In the beginning of the video, I said baklava is a pain in the butt. And the reason why mostly is because of filo dough. Traditional baklava is made with fresh made filo dough. I've never made my own filo dough. That's an art in itself. I buy it prepackaged. And when I buy it in a commercial environment, I get it fresh and I get it in giant rolls, and it's much easier to spread out. You're more than likely going to pick up filo dough like this, which comes in 45 grams or 1 pound packages. Unfortunately, you're going to get it frozen, and in the thawing process, sometimes the filo dough gets really crumbly and it's hard to spread out and lay out, which I'll show you later. The second reason why baklava is a pain in the neck is because of the cooking process. If your oven has a convection setting and you can't control the fan and lower that fan speed, most home ovens, you don't have that option. If it's blowing too hard, you're going to blow the filo dough all over the place as it cooks, because filo becomes flaky as it cooks. So you're going to need to cook it in a non-convection setting, which means that you're going to cook it at a low temperature around 200 to 250 degrees, actually more like 250 degrees, and you're going to rotate it every 20 minutes until it's golden brown. And the reason why it's a pain in the neck is you're going to have to do that for 2.5 to 3 hours. We make a lot of baklava at my restaurant. Hundreds to 1,000 pieces a week, but I don't make it. So I'm going to introduce you to someone who does, the expert. So Melinda is from Greece. Actually, she's from Albania. She's been working with me for 17 years. Say hi to the world.
Hello, everybody.
Melinda is an expert at making pastries and baklava. Actually, as a matter of fact, she makes a lot of my food, but most of the things that she makes in my restaurant is desserts, and she makes extraordinary desserts, and she makes an exceptional baklava. So I'm going to have her show you how to make it, because she's a pro. Melinda, what's the first thing we have to do when we make baklava?
The first you have to start to do the baklava is the syrup.
The syrup, okay.
Because the syrup is supposed to be cold.
Okay.
And then the baklava hot. If you have hot baklava and hot syrup, it's going to be soggy.
Right.
So, or the baklava is supposed to be cold and the syrup hot, or the syrup. But it's more easy when you have the syrup first make it to be cool and then leave it in the fridge. Mm-hmm. And then you can cook it, the baklava. And then when it's ready, you're going to see the noise. It's going to go. It's
going to sizzle. When you make baklava, one of these two ingredients has to be hot, either the baklava or the syrup. They can't both be the same temperature, because if they are the same temperature, say they're both hot, it's going to be soggy. If one of them is cold and the other one's hot, it's going to be perfect. If they're both cold, it's going to crystallize when you pour, eventually when the baklava settles. So the key is to make the baklava syrup first, so it's cold, and then when you take your baklava out of the oven, you're pouring a cold syrup on it. What do we add to the syrup first?
So first of all, you have to measure the sugar.
The sugar,
it's
okay.
It's supposed to be 3 sugar, 2 water.
3 cups of sugar to 2 cups of water. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Now the ingredients for this is completely online, so you have total access to this on my website. This is my recipe at the restaurant. Of course, I make giant trays, but you're getting what I make at the restaurant.
Cinnamon stick.
2 cinnamon sticks.
3-4 cloves.
3 or 4 cloves, okay. And when you can, always use organic ingredients. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you bring that to a boil, and then you're gonna add lemon to it?
Yeah, after when the syrup start boiling.
How much lemon do you add to this?
Half lemon.
So roughly half lemon. Now you cut it into little wedges, right? My wife eats these lemons. I know you like to eat them too. After they're candied, they're really good. So basically, we're gonna let this boil now for how long?
For 5 minutes.
5 minutes. So you set a timer, or you just eyeball timer? Okay, great. That smells fantastic.
Lemon and cinnamon and cloves.
Now, why do you add the lemon? For flavor?
For flavor, and then to syrup doesn't be like sugar.
Oh, it crystallizes?
Yeah.
So if you don't put the lemon, the syrup could crystallize.
Yeah. So you see it now when the the syrup get the bubbling all over. So now that means the syrup is ready.
So 5 minutes have gone by. You want to wait for these big bubbles like a foam on top, and the syrup's ready. And we're gonna take this and let it sit.
All together.
I gotcha. So then what do? We let this do what? We let this sit for a few minutes and then put it in the refrigerator?
Yeah. You have to leave it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then you're gonna put it after in the fridge.
The next step is to melt the butter. How much butter would we use? About a pound?
Yeah.
So it's a diet. It's a light dish.
Yeah.
It's very light.
Heavy. It's heavy.
But you eat a little piece, you just eat a little piece. You're not, Let's start working on our nuts a little bit.
Let's start with that.
Let me get this out of the way a second. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So you can use a food processor. I mean, you could do it by hand, which is the traditional way of doing it, but we don't have time for that. So you measure the almonds and the walnuts first and then grind them up? Okay, great. So we added roughly 700 milliliters of sugar and we added roughly 500 milliliters of water. Basically, it's a 3-to-2 ratio. And now we're going to add 235 milliliters or 1 cup of almonds and 2 cups of almonds and 2 cups of walnuts. Okay, so let's do that.
Yep.
And 2 cups walnuts. Okay. Almonds. Yep. I mean, really, you can go heavier if you want. It's really up to you, but this is the way we do it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's put this in the food processor.
And you can blend it all together.
I don't have a pulse setting on this.
Stay a little bit chunky and a little bit. Let me see. That is good. Yeah.
So this is kind of the texture that we're looking for here. It's almost like chunks and crumbles.
A little bit, yeah.
So to this, we're going to add 1 milliliter or 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Just flatten that out. Right?
Yep.
And half a cup of sugar, or 118 milliliters of sugar. All right, so now we're going to add this, put this in our fridge, and we're going to wait for it to get cold before we even consider putting on the baklava. And by the time the baklava cooks, this is going to be cold.
Yep.
Okay. So the filo, the fun part. I know you don't like this little filo. The filo rolls we have at the restaurant are gigantic.
Yeah. First step, you have to measure the filo because the filo with the art, it's a little bit more bigger.
Right. So you're going to cut the filo roughly at basically the shape of the bottom of the pan, roughly.
Yep.
Now, when you're using filo dough, if you're not going to use it and you're going to let it sit out, it's going to dry. So you have to cover it with a damp towel. So the first step is to butter the pan. Now, I'm using a glass pan intentionally because I want you to watch this as it cooks in the oven. Sometimes you're so fixated on the filo growing gold that you're burning the almonds. So you want to keep an eye on the edge of the almonds too the first time you make this because you can physically burn the nuts inside without even knowing it.
And then the first you have to put 5 filo or 6.
6 layers, okay.
6 layer sheets. So I put it 2 and 2.
So you put 2 at a time?
Yeah. And then I butter a little bit.
So the butters will soak through?
Yeah.
Okay. Now how come you don't butter the whole thing? It's just too much butter.
it's too much.
It's gonna
So
spread out.
anyway, yeah. So that's supposed to be every 2 sheets layer filo, and a little bit from the R mix, just like that.
Okay, so you spread it out loosely.
Yeah.
Okay. The bottom layer has 6 pieces of filo. Now we're gonna add 2 more sheets of filo on top of that, and we're gonna keep adding filo dough until we're out of mix, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now we're done with the almonds, we're done with the walnut mixture. Here we're gonna take the last 5 layers of filo and put it on top. So how much filo dough did you use so far? Pack and a half?
Yeah.
So basically to make this, we've only used 1.5 pounds of filo dough. I was thinking that we were using close to 3 pounds. So 1.5 pounds filo dough. You can go as high as you want. My father is from a part of Greece called Evia, from Kimi, and Gumiotiko baklava is really unique. They blanch the almonds, they puree them much finer than what we've done here. And then they do 1 layer at a time. 1 layer of filo, 1 layer of almonds, 1 layer of filo, 1 layer of almonds. And they use a cultured butter or a fermented butter. And they literally make it very thick, on the order of maybe 7 or 8 centimeters thick. And it's white. The whole baklava is completely white. It's a unique baklava. So each one of these packets is 450 grams or 1 pound. We've used about 700 grams. So the last layer is the layer that most people are gonna see. So what Melinda's doing here is very carefully using a much larger piece so she can cut around the edge so it looks uniform. So when you make the baklava, you have to cut it in advance, because if you don't cut it in advance, when you try to cut it later on, it's gonna crumble on you. So you have to score marks on the baklava. We have choices here. We can make it square, we can make it triangular, we can make it diamond shaped. The prettiest is the diamond shape. Do you feel like making a diamond shaped baklava?
Whatever you like.
Okay, good. Let's go diamond shape. So you put a pretty heavy amount of butter in there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the oven a little bit, okay? So I'm gonna be using my convection oven. I've tested it. It's not gonna blow the filo all over the place. It's got a light fan. If you're gonna use a convection oven, you're gonna put it in there at 350 degrees, and the time is gonna vary based on your oven. It could take up to about an hour, but most likely about what, 40 minutes?
35 to 50 minutes.
And some of them have hot spots. So if you may need to rotate your baklava in that oven. Now, if you use a non-convection oven, prepare yourself to take, it's gonna take at least 2 to 2.5 hours, and you're gonna have to rotate it every 20 minutes.
You said in your country, used to do the baklava in your way.
Mm-hmm.
In my country, my mom used to do the filo homemade.
Wow.
And it's been 120 filo.
120 sheets of filo.
Like, yeah, sheets of filo, like cigarette filo. It's like
cigarette paper?
Thin, like.
So it's as thin as a cigarette paper.
Very thin.
Or rolling paper.
Rolling, with the hands and leave it to dry it a little bit, and then to do the baklava. It was taking maybe about 3-4 hours only to make the filo. But it was
crazy.
Fun. I remember when I was very little and I was watching my mom to do all that, 3-4, all together, the woman.
I remember when my father in the village, it takes all day. They would spend from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night making baklava. Melinda, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this show and for showing everybody how to make baklava the right way, the way we've been making it forever. You're an expert at it, and I want to thank you for giving us the time to make this baklava the right way. It seems like 35 minutes was the magic number, and I didn't rotate this in my oven because my oven's convection, and you can actually see that there's a darker side here. It would have probably been wise to rotate it about halfway. So again, if you're not going to use a convection oven, you got to rotate yours every 20 minutes. You got to lower the temperature to about 250 degrees. 350 will just be too much. Well, we got our syrup. It's like really, really thick and syrupy. It's been in the fridge. It's ice cold. And we just want to strain that onto the baklava. So I'm using all of the syrup, and I'm actually taking a rubber spatula and taking the rest out of the pan and putting it on here. It used and sucked up every bit of that syrup. Now, you can make more syrup if you want, just the ratio is 2 to 3, 3 parts sugar to 2 parts water, and you can have a little extra on the side at room temperature if you want to garnish your baklava with a little bit more syrup before you serve it. That's perfectly fine. I felt it would be best to wait till the next day before I actually cut into this. Like I said earlier, 5 to 6 hour minimum, maybe just a touch above room temperature. You definitely don't want to cut into it when it's too warm because it'll just fall apart on you. So let's give this a try. I can't even eat this because I'm allergic to gluten a little bit. But this is amazing. Not because it's mine, but there's a reason why I've sold well over 1 million pieces of this baklava over 45 years. I really hope that you give this recipe a try. The better the ingredients, the more delicious it tastes. Do not use ordinary butter. Get your hands on some good quality butter, like Kerrygold or a very tasty aged butter. And remember, make sure you only use the clarified portion of it. Don't put any of the milk whey in there. The buttermilk, it's so good. Please hit that subscribe button. Share this on social media. Leave your comments down below. How do you make your baklava? Thank you for tuning in.